Hey everyone, Art Technical Sales AC Northern Europe. In this session, we're going to be looking at how Dynamo can help us in publishing sheets and views, create publish sets, if you will, and push them onto BIM 360 docs. So, as I mentioned in a previous session, um, when we look at Revit, the file that we're working on isn't actually the file that you would see on BIM 360 Docs. It is visually correct as to what we see, the stuff that's on BIM 360 Docs, but it's being defined by what we see in the published settings, right? So in this case, what you'll notice is that I have this architectural package, and I just have this sheet list, if you will, sheet and view list that we're going to be publishing. Okay, so essentially what we're going to be publishing right now is just this one sheet here, which is a list of everything that's included in the package, if you will. And so there's nothing else than the sheet list itself. So that's the only reference we have here, the only entry that we have. Furthermore, what you'll also notice is we do have a couple of more views and sheets in here. There's a 3D view, architectural. There's 4 sheets that aren't approved, and you can actually see that also on the title block. I've got, just as an example, A101, which is open, and you'll see that it says, well, the date of approval, if you will, it's not really in there, checked by, it's not really filled out. Okay, so what we've done here is I've created a Dynamo script. Let me just quickly open that, and it will help us in visually detect what sheets and what views have been added, if you will, compared to a previous version, and it will color code the sheet list according to those views and sheets. So if you're looking at the Dynamo script, then obviously we're going to take a lot of input from Revit itself. For instance, the username, the date, etc. That's what we're going to be using. And then I've also written a bit of Python code, which you'll see here, set the CDM sheet set, which actually is a communication between what I'm about to show you and what we're selecting in the sheet sets, what we're going to be sending out to BIM 360 docs and design. Okay, so without going into the details of the Dynamo script, essentially what we want to do is, let's assume that this is the first version that we've uploaded to BIM 360 docs, and then the second version that we're going to be uploading is actually going to include this sheet, because that sheet is now indeed fully detailed, if you will. There's a view on it. The door is in the correct location, etc., etc. So what we can do now is we can actually go into collaborate and say, right, as for my publish settings, actually I've got my sheet and view list. What I also want to have is I want to get my 3D view maybe, and I do want to get this sheet A101 non-approved. So there's a couple of things that you'll see happening when we do indeed go into my Dynamo player. So a couple of things. So first of all, I've updated my sheet list in the package. So essentially what I want to do now is the sheets that I've selected, well, by definition, because they're going to be published, they are approved, therefore. And because they're approved, what I do want to get out of this is that essentially that sheet is going to have an approval date and an approval person, which is going to come back to the user who's on Revit here and who's connected to the account. So I'm just going to run this, and you'll see a couple of things that are going to change. So first of all, if I look at the name of the sheet, that's going to be, as I mentioned earlier on, an approved plan this time. Second of all, the date is being filled out. The user who's been approving, actually the one in Revit, is going to be in here. And you'll notice that this is starting to get color coded. So we've got this sheet and view list that says it's yellow. So something has been added here on the sheet list itself, which essentially means, okay, there's been a couple of entries here, which essentially means we've got the 3D view and we've got the A101 approved plans. Second of all, the 3D view is yellow as well. The A101 sheet is also yellow because compared to a previous version, those were empty. So a lot of changes have happened to the sheet as well. So that's what you'll see happening here. Okay. So let's say that I want to have in my publish settings that for some reason at some point in time A102 is also approved now. So I simply go in here and I can then say, okay, I want to have A102 added to the list, and we're going to run this again. And so what's going to happen now is that A101 hasn't really changed anymore. It's just been added. The sheet list itself did change because there's a new entry here. The 3D view hasn't really changed. So what it's telling me in one blink of an eye is that there's something that's been added to this list of elements. Another thing that we can do with this Dynamo script is, and then we come to the sheet list controller and view list controller. Let's assume that A101 compared to previous version is still there. It's still approved. It's all good. But we did make some modifications on the sheet itself. So what I can then do is say, okay, this has an update, and I can simply run this. And so what you'll see again on the sheet view list is that we're going to have a couple of changes. First of all, the whole list itself hasn't changed. There's still that one 3D view, still the two sheets. So therefore the sheet list itself hasn't changed. But we do have a modification on A101. So you can immediately see that there's a couple of modifications here. Okay, another thing is, well, what if we still want to remove stuff? So let's say that we made an error and that A101 actually shouldn't be part of the publish set. So what I can do then is say, okay, let's get rid of this A101, save and close, run this. And again, a couple of things that will happen. Well, in this case, A101 gets removed. The approval date is gone. The check by date is gone. It's a non-approved plan again. And what you'll see is that the sheet list has changed and it's got a red code now, which essentially means some of the entries have gone from this sheet list. So that's what we're doing here. And we can sort of combine all of this, So let's say that, again, I'm going to go into publish settings. And let's say that I do want to get A101 back in the game and I want to remove A101 in one go, if you will, save and close. And we're going to run this. And so what you'll see is then that it says, well, it's actually orange now, which means we did have modifications, as in some of the sheets have been, or views have been added, and some of the sheets have been removed. And what you'll immediately see is that this yellow one means that there's an update compared to the previous version. So essentially what this code will allow us to do is to visually check based on that one sheet list. We can immediately see, okay, there's something with A101 that we need to look into on BIM 360 Docs. So it's a very nice companion script, if you will, to BIM 360 Docs and Design, where you can ask feedback from other users, non-Revit users. They'll look at the published file. The published file which will indeed have this list and the views that we specify, and they'll immediately know where to go. Even if this is a list of thousands of sheets, it will, through the color coding, tell us where to look for, what to search for. There's some elements in the viewer as well that we'll talk about later on, like a comparison between different versions of a file. And so all of this to better communicate between those different users. The Revit users on the one hand with their sort of invisible live Revit file based on the same functionality as Revit Server and work sharing in general. And on the other hand, the consumers of this data, the ones that need to feed back to those users. And that's it.